Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
We are diving into, well, a huge figure in American television, the original Perry Mason. All 9 seasons, 1957 right through to 66.
And not just that, but also the TV movie revival later on into the 90s.
Exactly. And our sources today, they're pretty comprehensive. We've got this huge catalog, episode scripts, plot summaries, the whole filmography.
It really is an amazing archive. So our mission, basically, is to kind of break down the Perry Mason formula, what made it tick.
Yeah, what were the core themes that let them make, what, 271 episodes?
Right. And we want to pull out some of the most memorable, maybe the weirdest cases, just based on the titles and the descriptions we've got here.
This is going to be like a masterclass in how a really, really rigid format, the courtroom procedural, can actually surprisingly lead to some wild creativity.
Definitely.
So if you, the listener, are curious how a show could run that long and still feel fresh, well, this is for you. Let's start where the formula really begins, the episode title.
Okay, so the first thing that just leaps out from looking at this catalog is how incredibly consistent the titles are. Every single one is the case of the...
Adjective noun, every time.
Yeah, the case of the adjective noun. It wasn't just like branding. It was kind of a promise to the viewer.
And it works so well as shorthand. They really nailed using things like alliteration, vivid descriptions right from the get-go.
Oh, yeah.
Season 1, you've got the case of the restless redhead, the case of the nervous accomplice. Instantly, you know you're meeting someone specific, probably desperate.
And sometimes it wasn't even a person. It was an object, right, that became the focus, like the case of the moth-eaten mink, or later on, the case of the shoplifter's shoe.
Right. It takes this ordinary thing, and suddenly it's tangled up in the whole plot, and it signals that, the past is about to catch up with someone.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. They didn't just stick to simple descriptions.
No, they got super specific sometimes.
Yeah, to flag how unusual the case or the client was, like the case of the pint-sized client.
Which tells you immediately, okay, a kid's involved in some serious adult trouble.
Or, the more attention-grabbing ones, like the case of the long-legged models.
Okay. Yeah, that specificity, though, that must have been key to managing, hundreds of episodes. It gives you this instant category for the kind of drama you're about to see.
Guarantees intrigue, doesn't it? But, while the titles were getting all creative and specific, the actual reasons for the crimes, they were surprisingly consistent.
Okay, so if the titles are so varied, why do most of the crimes seem to boil down to just, two main things? Financial trouble leading to blackmail, or someone faking their identity?
Yeah, that's what the data really shows.
Doesn't that get repetitive after, 271 episodes?
You'd think so, but they executed it so well. That strict focus on blackmail and identity stuff, it's actually, I think, where the show's power comes from.
How so?
Well, it's not usually about, big-time gangsters or massive conspiracies. It's more about ordinary middle-class people whose bad judgment or shame just spirals completely out of control.
Okay, let's talk blackmail first. Because looking through these summaries, it seems like that's the #1 trigger for murder.
Oh, absolutely dominant. It's almost always the cover-up, right? Trying to silence the person who knows the secret, that's what leads to the murder, not the original crime itself.
Yeah, yeah.
You see it right from season 1. The case of the drowning duck. Perry's defending this young guy accused of poisoning the person blackmailing him.
Okay.
Then there's the case of the vagabond vixen. A big-shot film producer is getting blackmailed by a hitchhiker he picked up. Small beginnings, huge consequences.
And it wasn't always about a recent crime either, was it? Sometimes the blackmail dragged up old history.
Exactly, like in the case of the wandering widow. The victim is being squeezed by someone who was a witness in a really old murder case.
Wow. So secrets never really stay buried in Perry Mason's world.
Pretty much never. Even if the initial thing was, say, embezzlement, like in the case of the Green-Eyed Sister, the murder happens because someone tries to cash in on that secret through blackmail.
Okay, so blackmail is huge. What about the other pillar, identity and fraud?
Equally fascinating, I think. It taps into this idea of reputation and how fragile it could be. People are just constantly not who they appear to be.
The fake deaths are the best examples of that, aren't they?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Take the case of the fugitive nurse. A husband is supposedly killed in a plane crash. Everyone believes it.
Right.
But then Perry investigates, finds out the body wasn't actually him,
Yeah.
and the guy's alive and kicking down in Mexico. Total misdirection.
And they didn't just do that once?
No way. They loved that trope.
Right.
The case of the corresponding corpse, that's about a guy who faked his own death and then turns up dead. for real later on.
Seriously, dead again.
Yep. So this constant shifting of identities, plus maybe some weird money stuff thrown in, like in the case of the substitute face, the victim somehow gets $100,000 just before being shot and chucked overboard.
Okay.
It all means Perry has to figure out who everyone really is before he can even start figuring out who did the killing.
All right, so we've got the rules, the main motives. Now let's get to the fun stuff, the episodes where it feels like the writers just decided to, you know, push the boat out a bit.
Yeah, where they really played with the formula.
Yeah.
The ones designed for that big aha, or maybe even wait, what moment.
Basically some wait, what moments in
You
here.
got to start with the witnesses. I mean, sometimes the key witness wasn't even human.
You're kidding.
Nope. We're talking animals providing testimony. There's the case of the perjured parrot.
A perjured parrot.
Yeah. Apparently, the only witness to a murder is this parrot that just keeps squawking the suspect's name.
Okay, that's amazing. How did they even stage that in court?
I know. And don't forget, the case of the caretaker's cat. It really seems like the writers were maybe daring each other to see how far they could stretch courtroom credibility.
It sounds like it. A parrot as your star witness. That's bold. And the titles themselves get pretty wild, too, beyond just animals.
Oh, yeah.
You jump from fairly normal situations to really out there stuff, sometimes in the same season. The case of the angry astronaut.
Right. Space age anxiety hits the courtroom.
The case of the crippled cougar. The case of the Greek goddess. It's like they were drawing from every possible walk of life, every specific little subculture each week.
Well, I think because the end formula, the courtroom confession, was so reliable, it gave them the freedom to start the stories in these really unusual places.
That makes sense. But the ultimate twist on the formula, the real exception, has to be that one episode in season 7, right? The case of the deadly verdict.
Oh, absolutely. That one stands out.
Because Perry loses.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Perry Mason actually loses the case. His client gets convicted, sentenced to death.
So Mason has to basically keep investigating after the verdict, outside the courtroom, racing against the clock to find the real killer before the execution.
For a show built entirely around that final courtroom gotcha moment, that was a huge dramatic risk.
Yeah.
Massive.
Definitely breaks the mold.
And speaking of breaking molds, there's a production detail that's really interesting. Out of all 271 original episodes, this source material confirms only one was ever shot in color.
Just one. Which one?
The case of the twice-told twist, right near the end, in the last season. It was based on Oliver Twist.
Wow. So visually and story-wise, it was totally different. Almost like they were hinting at a change right before the original series wrapped up.
Could be. It certainly stands out in the catalog.
Okay, so to pull off that kind of weekly storytelling, parrots testifying, astronauts on trial, the production itself must have been incredibly solid, right? What were the constants behind the scenes that kept it all grounded?
Well, one key thing was having stable authority figures. The judges.
Right, the judges.
The show used a rotating group, but viewers saw the same faces pretty often. Guys like Morris Ankrum, S. John Lawner. They provided this reliable judicial backdrop. Perry could bend the rules, but the courtroom itself felt constant.
And you can't talk constants without mentioning poor Hamilton Berger, the DA.
Huh? Yeah, the perpetual loser. But even he shows the strength of the machine. Remember William Tolman, the actor playing Berger? He was actually gone for a chunk of season 4.
Oh, yeah, I read that, like 13 episodes.
Something like that. They brought in other actors to play prosecutors.
And the show just kept rolling.
Exactly. The core formula, the stakes, the structure. It didn't really matter who was sitting in the prosecutor's chair. The tension was always between Perry and the state.
That's a testament to how strong that formula was.
But the biggest testament, how long it lasted. The original show ends in 66. But then, boom, 1985, nearly 20 years later, it comes back with Perry Mason Returns.
Right, the TV movies. So how did the formula hold up after all that time? Did they have to change it much for the 80s and 90s?
Well, the core structure stayed remarkably similar, but they definitely updated the types of conflicts.
How so?
They moved the secrets and blackmail, out of just family dramas and drawing rooms and more into corporate settings, media scandals, that kind of thing.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Look at the movie titles. Instead of, say, A Moth-Eaten Mink, you get The Case of the Scandalous Scoundrel in '87 about a murdered tabloid publisher.
It's very 80s.
Or adapting the identity theme for sports, The Case of the All-Star Assassin, where he's defending a pro football player.
Got it. So the fundamental structure, wrong person accused, usually hiding some smaller secret, Perry unravels it in court that stays put.
Absolutely. It works just as well whether the victim's a mobster, like in the case of the Malign Mobster, or a magician killed during a trick, which was the case of the glass coffin.
Wow.
The formula proved timeless because that core idea, dramatic, high-stakes exposure of truth, never really gets old. Hashtag tag outro. So when you boil it all down, the real genius of Perry Mason, I think, wasn't just about clever, twisty plots. It was about how incredibly consistent the dramatic engine was.
Right.
Every single week, you knew you were going to get an ordinary person tangled up in some extraordinary legal mess, always leading to that incredibly satisfying courtroom climax. That's what kept people hooked.
And hopefully after this deep dive into the source material, you, the listener, have a much clearer picture of how that structure worked, the creative risks they took within it, and why it's still such an enduring part of TV history.
Definitely. So here's maybe a final thought to chew on. If we go back to those core motives, blackmail and secrets, and look at cases like the case of the lazy lover, where the whole mess starts just because a homeowner tries to find an unconscious guy in his driveway.
Yeah.
It really highlights how often murder in these stories is the direct result of a small deception blowing up into something catastrophic. The cover-up is almost always way more dangerous than whatever they were initially trying to hide.
That's a really good point.
So what does that tell us maybe about the risk of keeping even small secrets bottled up in a community? That potential for fatal escalation. Something to think about until our next deep dive.